Welcome, dear seekers of healing and harmony, to Entheonanda, where the mystical meets the practical and the power of microdosing sacred earth medicine is revealed. Between the harmonizing power of nature and the subtle intricacies of the human mind, we discover a path to balance and well being. Join us on this enchanting journey as we explore the art of healing through microdosing, where the tiniest doses yield the grandest transformations. It's a journey of self discovery and gentle restoration, and we are honored to be your guides. So thank you for joining us. I know it's been a while since we've done a video. Hopefully, you guys are following along on our journey of sharing with all of you. But today, we're sort of just going to go back to where we left off and talk a little bit about ritual and ceremony some more, and just sort of touch back in on that topic. So it's kind of a special day today. It's May 1st. And Jennifer, would you like to talk about what makes this day so magical and incredible?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you. I love it. And I love talking about ritual and ceremony in general with these medicines. I feel like, we talk a lot about cannabis, but I also work with a lot of psychedelics and I support people around their own use of them. And I feel like ritual and ceremony, however we connect into that, it kind of adds to the magic of these medicines
Yeah.
and connects us to that magic, whether it's earth-based, whether it's spirit and universe-based, whatever that is for us, whether it's religion, whatever it is, whatever the
Yeah.
expression is of our spirituality, right? It just increases
Mhm.
that for us and in that relationship with these medicines. And so, I'm initiated in a few different traditions, and one of them is in specifically in my own ancestral lineage in the Northern European pagan diaspora, and in that original traditional circle or wheel of life, which has been modernized over the many years and in the
Sure.
modern era, right? Like everything is, there's a touch of the ancient and a touch of the modern, right? But in that particular old calendar, as we celebrate it now, and specifically in the Northern Hemisphere where we are, this is Beltane or Beltana, May 1st, May Day. And in that calendar, this is the beginning of summer. So even though in our modern day calendar, we think of it still as very much as of spring at this point. If
Yeah.
we have the good fortune here where we live in the Pacific Northwest specifically to really have that connection or feeling like something has further turned in this expression of spring.
Yeah.
And like I was just outside in my garden a little bit before this, and like the bees and the yellow jackets and the wasps and all of those little buzzy creatures that I don't always love interacting with in the garden because they're like whipping past my head. They're
Yeah.
very active today, which to me
I love
is an
that.
indication actually of the turning of the wheel towards
Yeah.
summer.
Hmm.
And Beltane for me when I hold ceremony and I call in the elements, because that's one of the things that I do, Beltane and the
Hmm.
beginning of summer, and this part of the wheel for me represents symbolically, and in a ritualistic setting, it represents fire, fire of
Yeah.
love and compassion, fire of, like fire in our heart, in our bellies, like very embodied sense.
Hmm.
And with that, like the privilege of having a life at this time and being embodied, whatever this body looks like. I think all of our bodies are so beautiful because what a gift it is to have a body,
Truly.
what a gift.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets to have one. And
Yeah.
then some of us don't get to have one for as long as we like, right? So if we are embodied and for as long as we are, it's I sometimes I forget and I fall into my own little critiques about my body and wish it looked a little different, or like I was a little fitter or thinner or this or that, but when I tune in, when I stop and breathe and tune in and connect with the earth, I am in awe of
Mhm.
being in a body. And so
Yeah.
this is that time, and the temperature outside for us is warming up finally. And so,
Yep.
like, it starts to feel good to
Yep.
wear less clothing, and I think of it as the beginning of a very sensual time of year, like literally
It is.
sensual, like using, like impacting all of our senses. And yes,
Mhm.
sacred sexuality might be in there as well.
Sure.
Because I love that as well, but like
Yeah.
sensuality,
Oh,
the
yeah.
the things we can experience because we have a body, and
Mhm.
each of us, and we can experience the five senses, so
Yeah.
it's a wonderful, delicious time of year. It's also
It
directly
is.
across the calendar from Samhain, which,
Oh,
we
yeah.
either think of as, some of us think of it as Halloween or Day of
Yeah.
the Dead, Dia de los
Mhm.
Muertos, depending on your, background and your culture and where you are from in the world, and, which is deeply connected to our ancestors and those who were previously embodied and aren't any longer, and
Yes.
honoring and celebrating them. So there's this interesting connection across the wheel,
Yeah.
from now being in a body and all the things we get to practice in
Yeah.
our life and experience, and also sort of this like reflection across the year, to our
Mhm.
ancestors and those who went before us. So it's I
Absolutely.
mean, every time of year is magical, but this one for me, I love spring. I love going into summer. I love feeling
Mhm.
the warmth arrive and
Yes.
really celebrating our lives.
Yes. For me, it's the sunshine, right? Like, yes, the weather's getting a little bit nicer, but especially here in the Pacific Northwest, we do have some gray days during the rainy season. Although, as a transplant, for me, because I was raised in the Midwest, so I'm used to green trees, and then they turn brown and red and yellow and all the wonderful things in the fall, and then they just disappear. And so
Right,
it's a lot of brown with the gray and whatever.
right.
So for me here, because of all the evergreens, it's like even on a gray day, it's still just like vibrantly colorful to me. So I don't know if everyone can appreciate that, but for me, it's one thing that I've noticed. But when that sun comes back, and to feel the sun on your skin, on your face, to feel it licking at your skin it's like you were saying, it's the embodiment of sensuality. It's just
Yeah,
really, there's something
yeah,
so delightful about feeling the heat and the
mhm,
light. All of that is really, really
yeah,
wonderful. And
yeah,
it's a great thing that we take this day and stop and to recognize that, right? To honor that and ritualize it, I think is really, really important.
yes,
And of course,
yes,
May Day also has a lot of roots in sort of commemorating the labor movement and sort of the struggles that people have gone
yes,
through just
yeah,
to for us to be able to
yeah,
enjoy some of the privileges that we have, right?
yeah,
Working yourself to the bone until you die is, you know, it was a way of life for
right,
a very, for millennia. This is what people had to do, and we're very privileged, I think, to live in a time where a lot of strides have been made, and maybe we're actually
yeah,
going backwards in certain ways and having to fight for rights that we thought we'd already established.
yeah,
But yeah,
always,
I think it's along with that sort of like witchy spiritual thing is also really nice to stop and commemorate all of the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears
yeah,
right
yeah,
here on earth that people have made for us.
yes,
People have bled and died for us to have a little bit of a better life than what
yeah,
they could have expected. And I think that we owe that to the next generation. Let's try and pass that on. But anyways,
beautiful,
that's enough of
beautiful.
all that, all
Well,
that
I
stuff.
think that's a great segue actually to what we also were going to touch back
Yes.
on, is the
Yes.
work you have done in your life. You have done some incredible work in your life that I feel like is in part an expression of what you shared with us in this podcast
I think so too. The
back in
wishes.
December, I
Yeah.
believe, about a
Yeah.
ritual you created or brought in for yourself. And we said
Yeah.
at the time back then that we would circle back to this and check in with you.
And
And
now
I
here we are. I
look
think it's as good a time as
forward to
any.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Please give us an
Sort
update.
of perfect timing. Well, I have to say it's alarming in some ways how much things have changed. You know, it's like I don't think I expected for this to have such an impact as it's had in these past few months. And certainly, I think there's a lot of room for improvement still. And what's kind of cool about this, because I went back through my wishes, I sort of put them away and just was going to let things just sort of simmer and just sort of see how things sort of shook out in my life, by not consciously thinking about them, but just letting them be there, letting those wishes kind of simmer. But
Can you remind us what it was that those wishes were? Can you just tell us quickly for those who are watching
yes,
not have seen
there
them?
are. Basically, yes. So you do a series of wishes over a series of nights. You write them all down. Without looking at them, you select one, you burn it, and just sort of give it away to the universe, right? And then on the very last night, you get to open up the paper and see what's the very last wish. And that's the one that you are really responsible for bringing into fruition. So that's sort of the one that you have to focus on. And then the other ones, they're wishes that you can certainly achieve by yourself, but you just sort of wish it and then let it go. It's not something that you have to consciously think about. So,
Thank you for that.
yeah. And I had all sorts of things like wanting to be with my neurospicy brain. It can be hard for me sometimes to keep in contact with people that I love, right? And so I've been making an effort, and I feel like I've been connecting more with people, like meeting up more, calling people, writing letters, just staying in contact with the people that I care about. That has certainly been something that's improved. I wanted to sort of improve my finances, and I've been able to pay down a lot of debt. And I'm earning a little bit more this year than I was last year. Yes, it's fantastic.
Very good.
Fantastic in these times. Like everything's so expensive. It's like just that little bump. It's like, you got to do that just to keep up. But yeah, I feel like things are moving in the right direction in terms of that. And the big one, I really wanted to improve my living situation. I've been a renter for years, and I was, in an apartment, and it was just like, I felt like I was ready for a change. And I was like, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I really want to get into a new space and maybe have a space of my own and not have, other people around. So anyways, I am currently a first-time homeowner. I was able to purchase a house, and I feel ecstatic about it. So all around me is just showing you a very tight view because everything is still boxes and clutter and chaos. But it's my own space, and I love it in a way that I can't describe, and I couldn't even begin to fathom the way that it would feel to actually get this wish come true. So my living situation has improved exponentially. There's things with being more in touch with my guides and with my intuition. And I've noticed definitely some sparks there. There's just a lot of things. I think in all of the areas, there's been at least some movement. But what's interesting is noticing that as I read through these, I was like, oh gosh, I remember making huge strides in that. But then since that, it's sort of dwindled away, a little bit. So it's that, one step forward, two steps back. And so I was like, okay, so I can see now where these things were starting to cook, and then maybe they got put on the back burner a little bit. And I was sort of maybe was just sort of sliding back into old habits or old mindsets. And so these things that I was like, oh, wow, this was just really coming true.
Mm.
Maybe it's something that I need to continue to
Yeah.
make some progress towards. And so
Yeah. Well,
I don't know, that for me was really important because that's the whole game, right? Is that
yeah.
where there's no finish line, we're always just sort of on this journey and striving and doing the best that we can. And
Mhm.
so it was nice to see that um, things are happening and just to remind myself and feel good in that, like, yeah, things are going and like, with a little bit more
Mhm.
time and intention, I think that things can just continue to get better. But
Mm.
again, these are things that I'm just sort of, having given them up, right?
Mm.
I don't feel the pressure of like, I have to achieve this goal. It's just something that this is something that I want. I want this for myself. And I'm going into the world as someone who desires these things and who will, this is the life that I want to live. And that for me has made these wishes or goals so much more attainable, I feel like.
Mhm.
I sort of lost that whole idea of like rigorously, effortfully, like going after these things and making sure that like I have to, I have to do these things. It just feels more like I'm embodying this
Yeah.
newer, better person
Yeah.
that I'd like to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been
Beautiful.
really, really fantastic.
Mm.
And I have to
Mm.
say also,
Please.
the one that I had for myself was travel. I want to do some more travel.
Ah.
So on that front, I have not done a lot of like out of state, no flights or anything yet, but I still have some plans for these things.
Mhm.
But what's coming up is I actually got concert tickets to see Missy Elliott, which as a Gen Xer, I'm losing my shit. It's just so cool. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go see Missy Elliott. I'm taking one of my dearest girlfriends
Love it.
that I absolutely love and adore. So we're gonna go do that, and we're gonna sort of drive around. I'm gonna show her. I'm just gonna show her Washington. She's a Las Vegas girly, and so I'm just gonna. We're gonna go up mountains, and we're gonna take ferries, and we're gonna do all the fun things. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And that's
Oh,
another sort of check mark of, yep, I'm doing it. I'm doing the things that I said that I wanted to do. So
I love it.
anyways, yeah, it's fantastic. It really is fantastic. Thank you.
Very cool. Yeah, you're traveling with someone who's done the traveling over to you, but then you two will travel around.
Yes.
And
Yes. And I get to
sometimes that,
show one of my favorite people like what I love about where I live. And I think
yes.
that's just a really fun thing. Just to
Yeah,
be able to share that with someone is really, really cool, really special.
very
So,
cool. Very
yes.
cool. And what you're speaking
Yes.
to reminds me very much of the also why we make intentions or create intentions around these medicines, whether it's cannabis or
Absolutely.
psilocybin or whatever, whether we're microdosing or we're macrodosing. There
Yeah.
is something really magical and potent about and kind of uncanny almost. That's the word that comes to mind for me is when we create an intention, it's like these medicines for me are living medicines. I mean, they literally are either,
Yeah.
plants or mushrooms or something, and they're living medicines. And to me, they're very wise and knowledgeable and very
Hmm.
alive for me. And when we meet them with
Yeah.
some intention in our life, even if we have just spoken it or written it and let it go,
Yeah.
there it's amazing how many of those it just starts
Yeah.
something flowing, you know?
It really does. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about when they're microdosing entering this state of flow. And and the flow state has been studied, and yet it's still kind of hard to articulate it
Sure.
because like where does it exist? Where does it live? But we know it when we experience it. And part
Yes.
of the magic of that is utilizing, allying with some of these medicines, but also creating something for ourselves and then using ritual in that
Yeah.
combination, in that relationship. And then something opens up in the universe that is
Truly.
I feel like it's like how the internet works. I mean, there are people who actually could
Yeah.
articulate that, but for me,
Right.
it's kind of like magic in the air, you know?
Yeah. A little bit of woo.
And it's amazing
Oh gosh.
the intention you create actually begins
Yes.
to unfold. And
Yeah.
so I'm so happy for you. I applaud you
Thank
and
you. Yes.
so excited for you. And I love how you're demonstrating that like it's still unfolding. Like, it's just
Yes.
beginning and it's always this unfolding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm excited for you as well. I feel like I don't know if you want to share any of them, but there have been some wonderful things going on for you as well. And I just want to take a moment and honor that and congratulate you and tell you how very, very proud I am of you. So
Thank you. Thank
yes,
you.
I love you,
Thank
sis.
you.
Hmm.
There's a lot. I don't know if there was something specific you were thinking of, but I'm doing a lot more teaching and in this field and speaking, and it's really and writing, and it's really calling me to be
Yeah.
in stepping up in my life and leadership, but also like which I feel like these medicines have given me is like this coming home to like my true divine self, because none of this would have been possible for me, without some kind of grounded center point, calibration point for
Absolutely.
me in my life. Prior to having that inner compass so set for me, which these medicines have supported me in finding. They didn't do the work
Yeah.
for me, but they supported me in that. Prior to that, I would just like, at the thought of some of the invitations I've had to step into in leadership in this field, I would have just sort of curled up in my bed and put the blanket over my head, just be like,
Right.
"What, me?"
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, life is good. Life
It
is
really
good.
is. It really truly is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, Amazing.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so we're going to so we wanted to talk about just sort of begin to bring ritual and ceremony, and the idea of it, into these conversations, into this podcast, and
Mhm.
we will circle back to it. We are gonna keep peppering and
For sure.
sprinkling that in like
Yes.
little magic fairy dust. Because it's like it's the spark of life. It's part of it, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it's what a lot of people utilize and reach out to with these medicines anyways, and I like to try to put language to it, right? It's hard to
Yes.
do. It can kind of live in that
Yes.
ineffable, zone, but that's what these medicines create for us too, this sort
Yeah.
of experience that is ineffable. It's hard to find the words for, but when we can find the language, it really
Yes.
solidifies it for us and makes it
Yes.
that much more available. So yeah.
Absolutely. It's a conversation, right? We're having a conversation with
Yeah.
the medicine.
Yes.
And I think what's nice about our conversations is that we are sort of building and growing upon the things that we've touched on before and just sort of taking things in a really, really nice progressional level.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Love
Anyways,
it. Love it. Yay.
yes, it's been very fun. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I think that covers it for
Okay,
now. Yeah, and
incredible.
for our microdose of a podcast, I think this is a
Yes,
good
yet again.
circling back and touching in, and we'll continue to touch base with what you
Yeah,
created in December. I think
for
throughout the
sure.
year, circling back and checking in periodically for an update from
It'd be
you would
nice.
be
Yes,
amazing.
it'd be nice
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do.
So
Awesome. Thank
so very
you.
good. Well, if how about you? Anything else on your end?
I think we said what we needed to say.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, on that note, I want to just remind everyone that the content provided in this podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It is not meant to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The hosts of this show, both cannabis coaches, share their experience and knowledge about plant-based medicines, including cannabis and psilocybin, for enhancing overall health and wellness. However, these substances are not suitable for everyone and can have different effects based on individual body chemistry. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. And the use of plant-based medicines should be under the guidance and supervision of a health professional and in compliance with the local laws and regulations where you live. And with that said, I wish everyone many bright Beltane blessings today, this
Yes,
day, this symbolic beginning of summer,
indeed.
wherever you are, wherever you are.
Yes,
May you enjoy the many blessings of being in a beautiful body.
that's right. To new beginnings.
Yes.
We'll see you guys soon. Take care. Mhm.